From time to time on Swim Talk, we like to share a peek behind the curtain with you, but with a caveat. Just like the old saying that laws are like sausages, better not to see them being made, maybe we should add podcasts to that. Witness this recent attempt to begin our interview with Olympic gold medalist and former world record holder Dave Wharton. The charitable term to use here would be problematic. We like that. Problematic. Take a listen.
Okay, let's see. Are you still hearing me, Dana?
I'm hearing. I got you.
Dave, are you able to hear me? Because it shows on my computer that I've added Dave, but I'm not hearing him.
I got no indication of who's on the call except you.
Okay. It says I got 3 participants, so let me go back to the chat.
I got nothing that lists participants. We better learn how to use this.
Yeah.
Okay, I see that you've added him.
Yeah, but I can't hear him.
I wonder if you just added him to the chat and not the call.
He's typing something right now. Let's see.
He's going to school both of us.
Well, it couldn't have been added him to the chat. I've already been chatting.
Okay, I found him. I think I'm trying to add him.
Okay.
Oh, let me click the done button. Okay, click here. All right. Dave, are you there? I'm showing him as online with us.
Okay, good. Well, maybe we're getting close. Let's see.
Dave, if you can hear us, can you check your mic and make sure it's working?
Something just popped up.
I see audio message. Let's see what this is. It's supposed to be an 8-second audio message from him, but it's got no sound. He is typing.
Good. I mean, we might be making progress here.
Yeah, we'll do the whole podcast by typing. What a breaking new ground and hitting the Wayback Machine at the same time.
Yeah, well,
you got your Morse code key ready to go?
The comments and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own, and do not reflect those of their employers, friends, families, or casual acquaintances.
Hello and welcome to Swim Talk A to B, everything you need to know about swimming from A to B and anything else we want to talk about. I'm Dana Abbott, the A, and joining us from Bay City, Texas, is the show's co-host, Bob Button, who is the B in A2B. Bob, how's it going today?
Never better.
This episode of Swim Talk is sponsored by EddieReesBook.com. The highly acclaimed best-selling book, Eddie Rees, Coaching Swimming, Teaching Life, has been praised and recommended by top names in the sports world, including North Carolina's head football coach, Mack Brown, who says the lessons recounted in this book are invaluable for anyone interested in becoming a better leader. Rick Barnes, the University of Tennessee head basketball coach, says he understands how it all comes together, mind and body. Australian coach Bill Sweetenham, head national team coach at 5 Olympic Games and coach of 27 Olympic medalists, simply says, Eddie Rees, no person a better coach and no coach a better person. This book says it all. A master class from a true genius in our sporting world. The book, Eddie Rees, Coaching Swimming, Teaching Life, is available in Kindle and softcover editions at Amazon.com, at the website EddieReesBook.com, and at the online store of the National Interscholastic Swimming Coaches Association, NISCAonline.org. Get your copy soon. There he is.
Oh my God.
Not sure what I'm doing here, but
Hey,
Well, that
something
makes
worked.
3 of us.
Heck yeah. Ha! Oh, the miracle of modern technology. What do you got?
thing with Zoom, and now I've done it with Teams. I hadn't done Skype in I don't know how long, so I'm like, all right, I'm getting all my technology in this past weekend.
Bob did one of these 3-person calls with his own son just a couple weeks ago with me, and he couldn't remember what he did.
Yeah, it took a while to come back to me. You know what I do at school with my Zooms, Dave, is I have a little checklist facing me. I got it on the wall right in front of me. And the first thing is take 3 deep breaths. And then you go down through the list of all I got to do. I should do one of those for Skype.
That's great.
Oh, God.
Oh, gosh. Okay, he's got video on.
Look
Got
at
video
that.
on now.
Yeah.
Man, you're super advanced. You're out of our league.
I can turn mine on. But you and I both have good faces for radio.
Yeah, that's us. That's us.
Okay, hang on a second. All right, I'm turning mine on, see if it works. Okay.
I'm gonna stick with nothing. Oh man. So Dave, what we've been doing with all our victims is we'll ask a few things and take us wherever you want, and then Dana goes back and he'll edit out all my and anything else that doesn't fit,
And I will highlight every verbal mistake you make. We'll use those.
and he tried to pare it down to where it's not going to put too many people to sleep, and then dozens of family and friends listen to it.
I'll do a little intro here. I got this whole list of stuff about you.
Oh crap. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's not to embarrass you. It's just to try to drag in another half dozen listeners. But we'll go ahead and do this. Welcome to Swim Talk. We are excited this week to have another Olympian with us. This young man, at one time he was young, was on the 1988 and the 1992 U.S. Olympic team. He has held the world record in the 200 IM and the 400 IM. He was a 3-time NCAA champ in the 200 IM, swimming for Southern Cal in 1988, 89, and 90. He was a 4-time NCAA champ in the 400 IM, all 4 years at Southern Cal, 88 through 91. There are not many swimmers in the NCAA who have won a single event 4 years in a row, but he is one of them. He was the Pac-10 Male Swimmer of the Year for 4 straight years at Southern Cal. Got a gold medal in the 200 IM and the 400 IM at the 89 PanPacs, a silver in the 200 butterfly. In the 88 Olympics, he got a silver in the 400 IM, was 9th in the 200 IM, and in the 92 Olympics in Barcelona, he was 4th in the 400 IM. In the PanPacs, he has a total of 4 gold, 3 silver, and 1 bronze medal. He's quite an impressive swimmer, and we're going to talk about his training and his competition. And we'd like to welcome Dave WHARTON. How are you today?
I'm great. Great to be here and hopefully interesting to share.
Good deal. Bob, you want to get things started. You said you've got a really great question to get us rolling. Go ahead.
Thanks for the build-up. Hey, now Dave's coming to us from New Albany, Ohio tonight. I'm going to back up, Dave, to when you were real young. Kids with hearing issues have some added assistance nowadays in the form of hand signals, strobes. What kind of difficulties did you have to overcome with starts? And what were some of the best methods from your era that helped you out when you were coming up?
Well, the hand signals and everything else, I'm not sure if everybody's aware, but I wear hearing aids in both my ears. And I was born moderate to severely deaf in both ears. And I have 2 older brothers that have the same disability. Swimming was one of those sports growing up that you got in the water and I could just do my thing. And I wasn't having to react necessarily to the coach during a race or like in basketball when somebody's yelling at you to do something or whatnot. So swimming was one of those sports that was great for me and in my situation. So as far as the starts and all that, it was something that I learned to go behind the blocks a few races before my race was up and start to learn to observe. Like one of the things that I grew up doing was observing people around me. I'm a very good lip reader. So I like to see people and whatnot. But when I go behind the blocks, I would be watching the referee and the officials and the starter, see possibly how long they hold, or when they say take your mark, what that sounds like. So I never tried to anticipate that because we don't want to obviously false start or anything. But it would be something where I would close my eyes and potentially, see if I could hear everything clearly. And as I was younger, we were still using the guns and whatnot. That was no problem to scare the living daylights out of me to get me off the block. When we got to the horns and the beeps and all that kind of stuff, that was still, solid enough for me to respond. But there were an occasion when the speaker was on the side of the pool for the more local meets, I guess, hearing the referee or the officials talk and say their mark, it would be very clear if I wasn't paying attention. Sometimes I got left on the block. Other times I got real good with my peripheral vision to see when other people went down. That's when horns and speakers started to get under the block. So as soon as I bent over to take my mark, I was literally within 2 feet of the speaker. So it worked out pretty well. But, growing up, it was a technology progression type of thing. So it was interesting on the training side because everybody was always very helpful. My coach could look at me, teammates would help me understand what the set is or however that was going. But swimming was a great sport for somebody with a hearing loss.
I had a swimmer that I actually shaved my mustache off once because he was had to read lips, and it helped him a little bit to read lips without the mustache. And that's the only experience I ever had having to deal with that. But I'm glad everything worked out for you. And yeah, I imagine the gun was probably quite a shocker.
I was actually, again, it was part of the process. But I've got some really good stories in college, as far as the hearing loss, and I became sometimes the secret weapon because I could read lips across the pool, literally reading the lineup from the coach talking about it.
Who's going to anchor the relay?
And then the NC2A, the parent section crossed the pool, and we were on the deck, and how time can be real tight when you're trying to coordinate a lunch with your parents and order something. So, of course, my mom and I could read lips extremely well. So I'd be literally having this, 5-minute conversation across the pool, mouth, what I wanted for lunch. And then, she was talking to Brad's mom sitting next to her, and she was like, well, ask Brad what he wants. So I would lean, and by one point I was ordering lunch for the entire team via my mom and our lip reading conversation from across the pool at the NC2A. So it gets kind of interesting when I could draw everybody else into it as well.
That's awesome.
You swam at Germantown Academy for a good friend of mine, Dick Shoulberg. Was the high school and the club program separate, or were they the same?
The club team and the high school team basically was the same, but we had a lot of kids on the high school team. I say a lot, a couple dozen between girls and guys that were high school only swimmers. So they would swim right after school, just like our club swimmers at the highest level would swim. So we swam together, but yet it was intermixed with who was swimming from the club and the high school at the same time, if that makes any sense. So we would swim club right after school up until the high school season started. And then the high school kids got priority. The upper level, the faster kids from the club would swim at the same time as the high school kids. So basically maybe your national team kids that were on the club would integrate with the high school team and train at that same time. And then he would just divvy out per lane the different levels. So your high school onlys that don't swim year round might be in lanes 5 and 6, or 4, 5, and 6, depending on numbers. And then the elite kids would be in 1, 2, and 3.
Well, those practices, it sounds like they could be pretty long, but in my research, I found something that said that you did in practice once, I hope only once, a 16,000 meter IM. Is that accurate?
It's accurate to the extent that it was a 16,000 IM. It's inaccurate that it was only once. We did that annually on Columbus Day. So every Columbus Day, Germantown didn't have schools, so we would go over to the Foxcatcher Estate to do long course training. And one miraculous, one day, Shoulberg came up with the idea, like, let's do this little race. We're like, okay. And he was famous for, everybody would want to know what the set is and all this other kind of stuff. And he would say, okay, we're starting on the top, and it would be either 30 seconds away or something, and he would tell us the set. And we started at the top. There was no argument, no discussion, no time to bitch, none of that. And then we would go. So when he announced we're doing a 16,000, we knew something big was coming. We didn't know what it was, but we knew something big was coming. Yeah, and that became an annual thing because it was just a test, and you've probably heard a lot of Shoulberg's, ruling sets of 10,000 flies and 5,000 pole fly with no buoy, just a strap on your ankles.
Oh yeah, to make it easier.
He was famous for finding new ways to challenge us, but a lot of the kids that were at the program, it wasn't about being able to physically finish it. It was more of the mental. Because when you get up on the block, for me at least, when I got up on the block and I looked to the left or the right, you can be darn sure that I could say with absolute confidence that nobody else, unless they were on my team, could ever do that or want to do that or have been challenged to do something like that. So I know that I worked extremely hard, but back to the 16,000 IM, I really actually enjoyed this challenge. So it's a 16,000 IM, 5,000 IM. So you did a 250 fly, 250 back, 250 breath, 250 free, and you did that 16 times. And I got into the groove, and my challenge was to see, okay, how many times can I lap people? Like, of course, when you're swimming for,
almost 4 hours,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So I got it down to 14 minutes 1,000. So I averaged 14 minutes 1,000. So I finished in 3 hours and 44 minutes. And you don't stop. Like at GA or Shoulberg, you do not stop if the set doesn't require you to stop. If you're letting somebody pass you, they have to earn it. So you don't let just, somebody touching your feet or whatever. So, everybody's trying to drag off of you and all that kind of stuff. I got real good at, as far as being able to leave lane one. You just do a flip turn and you push off in the next lane. And then so I, at one point, had moved over like 4 lanes to get away from somebody who was trying to suck a ride off me. And Shoulberg couldn't find me. And then I worked my way back. I never stopped on the wall, never did anything, but was certainly moving around to get out of the way of other people and trying to work a way around other people, but then got back into my lane. To me, I always tried to find, very short goals and challenges within a long ass set with him as to how to, make it interesting, how to challenge myself. And we would all talk about it afterwards, of course.
Well, even though that was 16,000 meters and 3 hours and 44 minutes to get done, that's not the longest thing that I read that you did. I've got a note here that there was once a 65,000 yard workout, swimming for 2 hours and taking an hour off over 24 hours. That boggles my mind. How did that work?
Yeah, the 24-hour swim was challenging. I made it for about 4 of those sessions before I had to step out because of an academic commitment. So I had some major tests. I made about 4 sessions and then I left. But there are, you go so far and then you sleep. They slept for, like a 5-hour window towards the end, and then woke up and finished the last 2 hours of the 24-hour period of the practice. And then that's when I came in. Of course, I got the the looks of death from everybody that had actually stayed for that portion of the practice. But mind you, my practice that I came in for when they were leaving was not a walk in the park. It was still extremely challenging doing, again, he can read bodies. So he was not the type that he would design everything and plan everything, but he could look at somebody and just know how they're feeling in, the first set or two. And he'd already designed the practice, so it wasn't a matter of changing things. It might have changed the send-off in his mind. But he always challenged. 6,100's free on 59 seconds. But the pull stuff and doing, Shoulberg was not a sprint type of coach, but, we did one time, I can remember, we did 6,200 frees, and I had to be under 148. And they were all on like 6 or 8 minutes. And he ran heat, so it's not, and it was a 16 pool. This is at GA, and that was not something that you got to warm down another lane while you were swimming, because you're running other heats. So, you each had your own lane for that, thing, and you ran them every 2 minutes for maybe 4 heats or whatever it was. But you didn't get to, you didn't go under the time he gave you. You didn't get to count it. So you had to be under 148. I think I ended up doing 8 of them, 8 or 9. And then I was able to go. And then I was like, that was the end of practice, mind you. That was the end of a 2 or 3 hour practice where we were doing that set. And there were people there that ended up doing, I think, like 20 or it was like a lot more. And I was like, oh, crap.
Oh.
So you got to put up when he challenges you. You got to step up to the plate. And I was fortunate that I was able to do that majority of the time that he ran those crazy practices for me, and I loved it. I just went in there, and it's what I love to do. And I had fun with the people, making it fun, challenging myself in various ways. But there was 1 or 2 times in my career when I was in high school that I literally could not complete the challenges that he gave me, and he could see it, and he knew it. And it was not like I got a week off. Okay, you can go home for 30 minutes early tonight. We'll pick this back up tomorrow. I'm like, okay.
Well, Bob, I don't know about you, but listening to these practices and these sets has got me tired. What do you say we take a break for some obscene commercial exploitation, and we'll be right back.
Oh, if you say so.
If you're a high school coach, you should be a member of NISCA, the National Interscholastic Swimming Coaches Association. Membership benefits include a bi-monthly journal, a $1 million liability insurance policy, numerous award programs for coaches and swimmers, including All-America Swimming, Diving, Water Polo, and Academic, and multiple resources for coaches' education. NISCA. Find it online at NISCA, N-I-S-C-A, online.org. That's niscaonline.org. Okay, we're back, Bob.
Dave, listening to some of his sets, didn't you have to really be mentally on top of your game pace clock wise? He had some kind of odd intervals and stuff for you too, didn't he?
All the time. And
so you really had to know the pace clock.
I got real good at math. We had pace clocks back then. We just used the normal, the dial thing that goes around, not the digital number, LED type system. You're right. His sent up for, hundreds on 107 and 50s on 33. And, it was not the standard. Everything fell on the top or the bottom or on a 15 or 5 second. He didn't care. He was like, you got to think. Like, if you're not paying attention, and this is, I think, part of the challenge was that he was giving us something to think about while we were swimming. Like, anybody can swim back and forth on a black line, but if you're not paying attention, you could clearly, not have a clue what's going on. You're right. You had to be on your game, but like the way I looked at it is it gave me something to think about rather than mindless swimming. Or, when you swim to 16,000, you're singing to yourself, you got songs, but even then you got to know when your 250 is up or, like you're moving on or somebody's trying to pass you. You need to be aware and engaged. You got to be in the moment. I feel like I did a pretty good job of it. I love the pace clock. I take the pace clock over the digital clock every day of the week.
Yeah.
Now that we're a digital world and I'm trying to teach kids, they can read a digital clock and know that they got to leave on the next send off. That's fine and dandy. But if you ask them to tell them what time it is and they look at you like you're crazy.
Hey, I want to talk about racing real quick. We have a mutual pal, Keith Hill, and something he said last time we talked had to do with the old top 100 posters that used to go out to teams around the country. Okay, he said he was motivated by the guy at the top of the IM list, which happened to be you, because we used to put those up. I think it was pretty neat for kids to step on the blocks in various parts of the country and get to race against somebody that was on the list. Now, what was it like for guys like yourself, the guy that was the target when you were racing and these kids would climb on the blocks going after you? What was it like to be the one with the target on your back?
Well, it's kind of funny because I remember one time when Swimming World came out and I happened to be at the top. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But I was not somebody that, like my mom knew what my times were. She would write them down on an index card. If you had asked me what a record was, I had no clue. I did swimming because I loved it. They were my friends. I just enjoyed the sport. And I always tried to make improvements. And I started to get a little better, obviously, as I got older, with remembering what my own times were. Being on the top and everybody gunning for me, I didn't think anything of it. When I went to the meet, I just raced as best I could. I didn't really have expectations on time because I was just trying to do the best I could for that day. So what I learned was, as you got older and as you reached a certain level, you're not going to make your best time every time. And Shoulberg drilled that into me. Like, all right, you work really hard. You're not going to do your best time every time that you get up on the block. Like, okay, I get that. But even when I was younger at zone meets and stuff like that, I don't know if you remember the name Mark Henderson, who's a butterflyer, went to Cal. It's funny because he grew up in the DC area, and we went to, we happened to be at a similar meet in the Middle Atlantic region. And he came over and he was trying to talk to me, and I was just, I was getting ready for my race, and he's telling me the story later, of course, and he's just super pissed off that I wouldn't even acknowledge him, and then he learned later that I had a hearing problem, and he probably he realized that I didn't hear him, so I wasn't so much of an ass. I was just obviously, and then we got to know each other. We actually took our recruiting trips to Cal together. That's where he went, and I went to Southern Cal. So it's just interesting that to be the one that people are gunning for. I welcome the challenge. I just tried to do the best I could every day, whether I was on top or I was gunning for the person on top. Because I remember going to 1987 Pan Pacific Championships in Australia, in Brisbane, and I was swimming against Alex Bauman, 84 gold medalist from Canada, and I was like, ooh, okay, this is going to be, I feel pretty special to be in the same heat with them. And then, of course, I beat him, and oh, crap. Now there's an expectation of me. It's no different than it was this morning. Oh, yeah, I didn't feel that great. I'm like you're going to be fine. Go back and nap like you're supposed to, and then get warm up good, whatever. And then they set my first world record against Pablo Morales. Alex Bauman, Rob Woodhouse from Australia. I mean, I maybe started to hear about some of these people, but I wasn't the one to beat at the time. Then I became the one.
Now you're the one that has to say, okay, bring it on. Here I am.
Right. They did. I didn't win the gold the next year. But again, I still raced as best I could. And that, to me, if you can put your head on your pillow that night, saying that you did everything that you could in true fashion to yourself. You can say whatever you want to your coach, to your teammate, you gave it your best, or, but you're at how you're honest with yourself, that if you can put your head on your pillow, that you tried everything to do the best you could that day, then I can go to sleep no problem.
Hey, I tell kids the best make it look easy. And it's true. You don't see the great home run hitters struggle to hit one over the fence. It looks like they could do it in their sleep. So, here's a cliche. Might be the worst ever. Records are made to be broken. It's easy to say if it isn't your record. But you didn't miss a beat when yours went down, did you? You kept grinding and pushing, didn't you?
Oh yeah. So That resonates with me real well, because when I set that world record in '87. 5 days later, it got broken in Europe by Tamas Darnyi from Hungary. So all of a sudden, I'm on cloud 9, literally over the ocean on a plane. I think when it happened, I landed eventually in Philadelphia and carrying all this award stuff. Again, I had no idea. When you're a swimmer of the meet at PanPacs, the host country gives you all these little gifts and things, and you're like, okay, what am I doing with this stuff? And, so when I set my world record, I got 2 goblets, a pitcher, and a tray in sterling silver. So, and then I was swimmer of the meet, and then I got this huge sterling silver punch bowl. I'm 18 years old, and I'm bringing home sterling silver. My mom's calling me to make sure you pick up something that's going to remind you of this trip. And I'm like, bringing home tons of stuff that you're going to love. So they met me at the Philadelphia airport after we did all the shindigs at the Philadelphia airport with flowers and balloons and family and everything. When I got back, we were driving to the commuter field, and my mom was like, well, we got to pull over because Tom wants to talk to you. So this is back before cell phone. So I was pulling over to talk on a payphone. We pull over, and I call Tom Moore, my guy in Philly, and he talking about the meet, how you feeling, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, well, how do you feel about what happened? And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? We've just been talking about it for the last 10 minutes. I feel great. This is amazing. And he goes, no, what about what happened in Europe? I'm like, well, what happened? Like, I didn't know. Shoulberg knew. My mom found out, but she didn't say anything. She wanted me to enjoy the moment or whatever. And of course, just like, oh, okay. I'm not the world record holder anymore. Okay. Hard lesson, quick lesson, to go in the record books as being probably one of the shortest world records ever held.
Well, at least you didn't lose it in the same meet.
Well, that's true, I guess.
That happens.
That's happened. Yeah.
My coach said it. Nobody can ever take that away from you. You earned it. It's yours. You're in the books, and you were. For that time period, you were the fastest person ever on the planet to go that time.
The progression goes through Dave Wharton.
So I was like, okay. And that's when I learned that records were meant to be broken.
You and Darnyi had quite a rivalry back in those days, except you never really swam head-to-head that much, but the time kept going back and forth. There was a 1988 Sports Illustrated article that compared the racing styles of you and him, and said that you race against yourself and the clock, and Darnyi said that he races against the competition. Is there a big difference in that in your mind? And how do you, when you get in the water, are you still racing against yourself, or are you strategizing, as they say, the competition?
It's kind of interesting. I was learned to race against the clock, because the clock is always going to be there. There's always going to be running. So if you want to race your best time, you got to beat that clock. You could be beating somebody next to you, but not going your best time. So then the age-old question later, do you want to be somebody who gets a medal and doesn't do your best time, or do you want to be somebody that tries to get the best medal doing like the best time? And it's still, for me, it's about racing the clock. I know that the clock is always there. Now, it's not to say that I don't let people motivate me while I'm racing, but I know myself, there's nothing I can do about what somebody else is doing in their lane. Teach people to this day that when I'm coaching that, okay, unless you literally reach over and pull somebody's leg, there's nothing that you're going to do that's going to interfere with what they're going to be doing. You can distract them with your speed and all that kind of stuff, but you're not going to be able to change what they're doing in their lane. So I always focused on myself and the clock. The clock never went away. The clock was there at practice. The clock was there at swim meets. The clock was always there. Somebody racing against me, they could have a really great day and really push me, or they could be having a really bad day and not really pushing me. But clock was always having a great day.
Yeah. Let's go way fast forward to what you're doing now, Dave. As a Parks and Rec director, you're involved in everything under the sun. What are some of your favorite things now outside the pool, beyond swimming? What are your interests? Because I mean, you got to have a hand in everything now, don't you?
For my job, I love to just try to create opportunities for the community to have things to do, whether it be sports, whether it be classes, whether we don't have a rec center, so all of our activities are outdoors. Creating opportunities for the community is always fun. Trying to come up with something new, think outside the box, just to have some fun. So for me personally, I still love to work out. I'm swimming masters now. I took about 10 years off, after I retired because I just wasn't ready to keep doing it, and then found my way back and, remembered all the great people in it. I was still coaching as soon as I retired. So I didn't leave the sport, but for me personally, not to be swimming, but I took some time off from that. But now I'm back doing that. I love to kayak, and I biked for a while, did a couple of triathlons for a while, played tennis. I'm just an active type of person and just love to stay active. I got married. I have 2 wonderful kids, and helping them to enjoy what they do. They're both off in college now, and it's just keeping me busy.
Dave, one of my notes says you're coaching swimming for a high school?
Yes. So as soon as I left Ohio State, when I graduated from college, I ended up getting a coaching job at Ohio State for 4 years. And then I left there and came out to a community outside of Columbus at New Albany. And I have maintained that coaching position for the last 23 years while my career professional job has changed, but I was able to continue to coach high school. And I love that because I get to stay engaged in the sport, get to work with kids to try to get them to realize things that they didn't even know they could accomplish, challenge them to do things they didn't know that they could do. And it wasn't just kids at the upper levels and everything else. It was the kid who was a senior that came out for the swim team, had never swum really an organized team, fell in love with it, and he did it great for him as far as the year was, and he made a lot of improvement. And then he went on to do triathlons professional. He said that he did that because he realized how much he could do it with the love of swimming and everything else, and he thanked me for that. And I'm like, that's a great reason for me to keep coaching swimming.
Do you think your background at Germantown or your competitive experience on the international scene has affected the way that you coach compared to someone who doesn't have that kind of background?
I think all coaches have insight from their experience. And I think coaches that didn't swim, they probably struggle a little bit more. But normally those people did some kind of competitive. But most coaches I know in swimming swam at some point in their life. So I think that all coaches bring their insight into the sport. And I know I do. I don't try to pretend that the kids on my high school team could do the stuff that I came from. But the life lessons that came from it, they're very worthy of being able to learn from some of those challenges. So it may not be a 16,000 IM, but they heard about some of my crazy stuff, and then I had a couple kids ask me, like, hey, can we do a 3,000 for time? I'm like, you know what? That is a great idea. The fact that he brought it to me totally made me realize that he's ready for that challenge.
Well, we hear coaches warn against early specialization. What were some of the things you did as a youngster besides swimming? And let's carry that into what you're doing now. At what point did you make swimming a priority or the priority? And some of the kids you're coaching now, they're probably coming into high school as multi-sport athletes, and how you work with them around their other sports. Because we're trying to give kids, like you said, we're trying to make them well-rounded young adults.
Personally, I did a little bit of soccer, but I was a swimming nut my whole life. Summer league and then winter league for a number of years. I tried a couple things, but swimming was where my fit was, because it was a very good sport for my hearing, my focus when I was on the wall, looking at my coach, reading their lips, understanding what they're saying, even at every age I was. What I do now is just try to do different things. I bought a kayak a couple months ago, and I'm out there kayaking. I'm close to the water. I like to bike. I had a touring bike, so I was riding for cancer research with Pelotonia. I like, try new things.
This may be kind of a curveball, Dave, but can you think of something as a coach or a swimmer? Because our sport changes a lot. I mean, a lot of the things that I thought were so important and I had to have kids do it a certain way, now we're coaching them in a different way. But is there anything you can think of over the years that you would call an absolute that isn't going to change in the sport, something that you would continue to coach the way you were taught and the way you're coaching now, and you don't see it changing? Is there an absolute you can think of?
That's a really good question. I would have thought the pace clock would have been an absolute. Is there anything that is an absolute in swimming? It is the clock. Like, think of everything that's changed in the sport. The water stays the same, although they did try to change that with bromine. Water's water. Suits have changed, technology, better material, jammers. They went from little briefs like I wore back in the day.
We got the USRPT people. We've got all different kinds of training, and I like sharing across different sports. You can learn a lot from other sports.
A basketball player did the work on vertical, like it would help us get off the block faster. And of course, we'd all be around the next day because we were sore as heck, because that wasn't the muscle that we normally use. And we're like, you're doing this on purpose.
Groin muscles the next day, yeah.
Hey, Dave, what are a couple of things you tell brand new kids when they join your high school program?
I've taken on kids that didn't finish the test that I could see they have the heart, have the desire to learn. They have the ability to, really be coachable. I mean, I've had kids who go like under 22 in the 50, and they for whatever reason would never change their stroke mechanics. That's the kid that I struggle to coach. That's not coachable. He's fast. He's not coachable. So I look for the coachable, the desire, the work ethic. I look for that as much as I do almost anything else.
Right. Those are the ones that are really fun to coach.
Speaking of being coachable, are there any secrets you have about increasing a kid's coachability?
No, trying to find something that is impactful to that person to make them realize they need to be coachable. And that takes a little getting to know who that person is. But it might be simple as asking, have you ever had a really hard day if you're on the track? Like, let's say they were on the track team, like, okay, do you ever have a really hard day where you were just drenched in sweat? Was that hard for you? Okay. Well, you can't see yourself sweating in the pool, but how do you know you're not having one of those days right now? They don't even realize sometimes the lessons that you're teaching them. You challenge them to the point, all the way up to the point, then you smack them in the face with the lesson and say, okay, do you not realize what you just accomplished?
It sounds like you're saying that trying to communicate and relate to the kid gives you a better shot developing their coachability.
I think it does. Yeah, I think you try to get to know somebody and spend 3 or 4 minutes before practice with a new kid learning about them each day for a week. You have to find something that they like to do. Why are you coming out for the first time? What have you done up to this point? Like I always found swimmers to have great structure. Even when they're exhausted, they still know that what they got to get done. Parents are, unfortunately, we love them, and they are great volunteers that come out, help time and everything else. But guess what? You're not welcome at practice. Your kids are in high school. They need to learn to communicate with me.
I think I get you, Dave, because when a kid's there, they can't serve two masters. You're the master, the coach. They got to be listening to one person, not mom and dad waving at them over the fence, do the flip turn the way they've told them at home.
But I don't stop there. I usually tell the parents when they start to text me, because we have one morning practice a week that they're required to come to, 5:30 to 7 on Wednesdays. And the mom, will text me and says, Joey can't make it this morning because he's up late. Okay, thanks for the note. In the future, Joey needs to text me. Like I tell parent meetings, like, hey, we love to hear from you, and it's really nice that you want, but your child is the member of this team. If they're making the commitment to be on the team, they're the ones that are going to communicate. They can't do it. So unless it's something that they're embarrassed to talk to me about and you feel like you need to give me a heads up, to break the ice with Joey, that he's really struggling with something, I can pull him aside. Let's have a heart-to-heart here. I try to ease into those. But other than that, it's a hard lesson for some of those parents to learn. It's like, oh, okay, I guess you don't want to hear from me. I'm like, I don't mind hearing from you, but I need to hear from Julie first.
Right.
Julie?
Take the training wheels off, folks. These kids are going to have to communicate with their boss in the next year or two, too.
Teach these kids that they need to talk to their teachers. Mom and dad can't be parents for that. You need to be talking to your coaches. They're the ones that let's start raising these kids to be communicators.
When we come back, Dave returns to the topic of early specialization and a personal glimpse into an experience he had within his own family. Stay tuned.
Early specialization, now obviously with new kids team, they don't have a say in anything. They got to try everything. They usually gravitate towards what they can survive and finish. The more experienced kids that try to swim or whatever, and you're talking specialization meaning just one sport versus multi-sport swimming. So I think it's great if you're applying for Harvard and you want to be a well-rounded student, and very few people can be great at three sports. Something's going to give. Depends on whether you want to be good at three sports or if you want to be great at one sport. And most often than not, with the experienced kids, they're looking for scholarships and opportunities that go beyond high school or whatnot, or even bragging rights within the school to get their varsity letter or whatnot. And some kids can pull it off, and other kids just need to focus. So, Shoulberg, my own daughter, was a cross-country runner as an 8th grader and a freshman in high school, and she knows Dick Shoulberg as Uncle Dick. So we were with him one time, and she asked the question in her freshman year to say, well, when do you think, it's a good time? And I just sat back and laughed. I was like, okay, this is perfect. She asked, when's the right time to only be in one sport? And Shoulberg thought it was like, okay, when you get to be freshman, sophomore year, you need to be making that decision. Now, again, you run the whole gamut. You have some kids who are talented enough that can do 2 or 3 sports till they're a junior and then do one, and then you look like amazing. Now that recruiting is starting in junior year, if you want to, go to college and swim, and if there's any remote chance of being a scholarship athlete, you got to focus on year-round, dedicated time with swimming by the end of your freshman year.
I agree. I'm thinking more of the the little league kid that tears his arm up throwing curveballs, and by the time he gets to high school,
Right.
doomed. I like the kids in elementary and junior high doing just about everything. And like you say, once you start getting a year or two into high school, maybe it is time to narrow it down in a hurry. That's what our kids did.
What is their goal? What are they trying to accomplish?
Right. You just want to be good at or average at a bunch of things. And there are kids that's what they want. Do you want to be great at one thing? Well, pick it.
The parent will tell you, this is what I found funny too, is the parent will say, well, it looks good on their resume when they're applying to school that they, play a sport every season and whatnot. I'm like, okay, well, how does it look if they were, qualifying for states in one of those sports? Versus,
right.
Never making it. You're a part of 3 teams or whatever it is. So, it is interesting when you gotta ask them what, and a lot of times they don't know what their goal is, what their real mission. You might have to actually paint the picture for them.
Right. Right.
Well, Bob got to throw a curveball earlier. I'm going to throw another one right along these lines, though. Suppose a kid's going down that road and you come to the proverbial fork in the road where one fork takes you towards your passion and the other one takes you towards your talent. Would you have any advice for a kid? Because you could have great talent but not have a passion for that particular area. Or you could have great passion for something you're maybe never going to be that good at. Is that a difficult question to ponder? The answer is yes.
Boy, we're wearing him out.
I think you got to paint the picture. You got to paint the difference between the two. Somebody is really passionate about something that might not be that great at something. If they're very dedicated, but they've never given it that passion, how good do they know they can be? Versus, you're really good at something over here, but you don't really care about it. You ask anybody, one of the key ingredients of being great at something is that you gotta really want to do it. You can be good at something, but if you hate it, it's going to show. You're never going to reach your highest level. I don't think. This is how I feel. My personal opinion. Like, you can be a really great swimmer. You hate getting up for morning practice. You hate coming to swim and five. Like, I've had some of these kids on my team, and one time I had to say, you know what, because they didn't even attempt to make the test set. And I'm like, well, you know what? I think we're going to part our ways here. And she's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you clearly don't want to be here. You purposely sat out. They're shocked. And I'm like, well, you don't want to be here. Why do I want to? I'd rather spend my time with the other people over here, this whole group of 38 other people that would want my time. It's hard to get somebody young like that to realize what's going on. But I think it's our job as coaches to try to paint that picture as best we can. And sometimes it might be the right choice that they make, but it's got to be theirs.
I've really enjoyed this.
Home run, Dave. I appreciate you spending so much time with us, and we went all over the map and then back over it again.
We may have to split this up into a two-parter.
That was
a two-reeler.
Thanks for putting up with us, man. We put you through the ringer, and you really gave us some really good insight on a couple dozen topics. Thank you so much for joining us. This was really neat.
I appreciate having me on, guys. Best of luck to everybody out there.
Tremendous.
Right. See you later. Thanks, Dave.
This episode has been generously sponsored by EddieReesBook.com, the best source to purchase your own copy of the Amazon 5-star rated book about University of Texas coach Eddie Rees, and by NISCA, the National Interscholastic Swim Coaches Association, at www.niscaonline.org. Additional funding from the Podcasters Association of America and National Public Radio have not been applied for and most likely would not be granted even if we did apply. We're paying for this with money we were going to spend on desserts. Bon appetit!
Music credits and links to resources mentioned in the podcast are listed in the Show More section.